Turn them unhot for a second, please. The time has come. The marathon matchup show right here on the Stochastic YouTube's channel. The only show you need every week to prep. Maybe it's Thursday, maybe it's Friday, maybe it doesn't matter. You don't have every day to watch every show. That's okay. We got you here. It's called the marathon matchup show for a reason. You guys already know. You've got your provisions on hand. You know, some of those Camelbacks. I know some of you rocking the beer helmets now, making sure that you're ready for the long haul ahead of you today. Buckle your seatbelts because here we go, breaking down 13 games on a Thursday morning. And I couldn't be more happy to be here with you guys. Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D, joined by, drum roll please, my friends, Eric Lindquist at Eric Lindquist on Twitter, making his probably not debut as like a fill-in on this show, but making his debut as a permanent fixture on the marathon matchup show. I don't think we could find a better fit. What's going on, brother? Happy you're here.
Skull, baby. I'm ready to rock. It's another season. I'm sure I'll be disappointed come season's end for the Vikings. For sure. Yeah, it just is what it is. Nice defense, guys. But I'm excited to be here. Yeah, it filled in a couple of times, but fill in some big shoes. Love Matt Savoca. Love some of the stuff he's doing over at 4for4. So give him a look on the old Twitters, the X, whatever you want to call it here as well. But I'm excited to be talking through some NFL. Excited to be talking through this season because there's a lot of parity. There's already a lot of things that are kind of up in the air as far as from a DFS angle, how we're going to attack it based on information that we gained in 2022. And as I've started tweaking with our new Sims products, as I've started working through last year's data, a lot of things jump into the top that I'm excited to talk about.
No doubt, man. And yeah, Savoca did a phenomenal job on this show. We had a great time together for a few years. He is now at 4for4 and he's doing great work over there and we love him. Saint Shepherd though said, I got to read a few comments first. These are like, so you'll see there are some people that are you know how this works, but like every Thursday sitting down ready for the trek. Saint Shepherd just did a shot and said salary-based expectations 3 times in honor of Matt Savoca. Yeah, that was his thing. We
DVOA.
We had a counter up on the board to see how many times he would say salary-based expectations. Ryan says NFL's back, baby. LFG. Hell yeah, man. Philip, best show of the week is back. Yeah. And also he said, thank you, Philip, doing my job for me, making life easy. If you haven't yet, please atone for your sins and hit that like button. Yes, atone for your sins. Let's get this north of 50 out of the gate. Wash yourselves clean of that filth and live new. For real, though, subscribe to the channel. Hit that thumbs up. It goes a very long way for us. And Clayton, member of 22 months using that free super chat. Welcome aboard, Eric. Make us proud, he says. You ready? You ready to make us proud, dude?
Do the best that I can. Can't make any promises. I can guarantee that I'll talk for 2 hours. That's something that can pretty much happen every single week. But I'm just excited because I feel like also maybe I'm speaking for both of us. I am speaking for both of us. Like MLB, after the first month is a grind. It's a straight up grind. But there is nothing like NFL because you get 6 days of like this silence, this buildup, this drama. And then there's just this exclamation mark, for better or worse. No matter what happens Sunday, you probably had a good day. Like I could probably come in, lose money, but just having that awareness that it's NFL DFS season again, and that we're going to have that buildup constantly throughout the entire year. Like it's so much better than any other DFS sport.
It's not even close. And there's so much nuance every week too.
Yes.
In baseball, it's like good pitcher, bad pitcher, good team, bad team, good park, bad park. Don't get me wrong. Like there are definitely exploitable spots. You've crushed in the betting front. Check out everything we've got over on the Odd Shopper channel, but it is less nuanced in many cases than football, especially with injuries and individual matchups and run defense, pass rush, offensive line, like all of that stuff comes together to either make great spots or bad spots. And I, for one, am very excited to talk about it. So let's make it happen, man. Hit that thumbs up one more time. Also, if you're watching after the fact, leave a comment down below. At the very least, we read all of them, try and respond to all of them. And everything we have is available in podcast form. I know a lot of you guys have heard me since Tuesday say this, but I'm going to remind anyone who's new, we're doing podcast exclusive content now. I'm really excited about this. They're extended versions of the strategy show, and they're like 25, 30 minutes. And we've got really warm reception on the one Ben and I did Tuesday. It was single game and 3-max strategy. A lot of people saying, hey, you guys, there's not enough of that in the industry. I'm so glad you guys are doing that. So if you have any ideas for that type of content, let us know. It's all on our podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. And we're giving away a free year, an entire season of our brand new Stochastic Sims NFL package. It includes the lineups, or the lineup simulator, contest generator, lineup generator, ownership, player projections, top stacks, Discord, literally. You no longer have to get this, and this in order to have all of our stuff. One spot, got it all. We're giving away the entire season to the best review that we get, whether it's the funniest, whether it's the most sincere and honest, whether it's throwing me back to a memory that makes me happy. You could do that. You could try and play. You can try and play to my emotions. That could work too. But get in there, leave a review, put yourself in. And even if you don't win, just think you're doing something good for us. You're helping support the channel, but we want to support back and give something to you guys. So second place and third place are also going to get a free month. Each month is $199 value. Jump over there, leave us a review. You've got all week, all the way through Sunday. And then next week on the deeper dive, we're going to throw all the best ones up on the screen and make a spectacle of it. So see if you get up there, see if you can win some pretty massive prizes here going into the season. All right, I'm done. You ready to rock?
Ready to rock.
Let's go. Blaine, email us, support@stochastic.com. Mike, put that link in for anyone looking to expedite the process to get the free sub for the owner's box promo. Can you do that for me? Just throw the link in, or throw the email in there. All right, we'll start it off. I used to go highest total to lowest total, but I don't think it's necessary on this slate. We're going to start this one off, Eric, with San Francisco and Pittsburgh. Probably one of the more under-appealing fantasy games on this slate. Maybe we can find some spots. We'll talk. San Fran laying 2, 41.5 point total. The big question mark here with San Francisco, George Kittle is legitimately questionable for this game. I would not be surprised if he isn't on the field for week 1 and they get him back out there for week 2. But I think this could be a slog fest. Like, I think this could be a slow-paced game. Pittsburgh at home in front of that crowd. I wouldn't be surprised to see this being a low-scoring, very competitive, but low-scoring game.
Yeah, I'm probably with you. I mean, also the San Francisco side, you just run into such a diluted timeshare because Deebo Samuel, he's had some kind of a hamstring injury leading into, I don't know, almost every game for the last 2 years at the tail end of seasons. And you kind of forget just how many pieces of talent they have around him and around Christian McCaffrey and Eli Mitchell you got to expect to be working in. And there's just so many other like lion share type situations that we have on the board, or I mean, just undervalued spots that like Christian McCaffrey is pulling tons of ownership at 8,700. And I'm not quite there in this capacity.
I'm not there at all, honestly.
It is wild to me to be seeing how many people are just clicking and forgetting him, or just moving along with it. Feel like you go down to Eckler in the game environment for 300 less. It just makes way more sense to me, but it doesn't seem like the field's doing that here at the moment. We'll keep updating things here as we go till Sunday, but it's truly just very, very unappealing. I think the most difficult thing for me to get a grasp on is, do we continue to see Najee Harris have this crazy bell cow type role in 2023 here? Jaylen Warren, somebody that in best ball was going in that, north of the 14th round, 13th round. He started falling into the like 110, 120 territory towards the tail end of best ball season. Thank God that's past us and we can focus on DFS. But what do you expect for Najee Harris's role going forward?
I'm glad you brought it up. And by the way, you and I would both be absolute imbeciles to be like, oh, you can't play Christian McCaffrey. Nobody's saying that.
No.
And his ownership came down to 10% on our last run 12 hours ago. I think it was at 18% earlier.
Yeah.
So I think obviously that looks a lot more realistic than what we were seeing. but there's some good running backs this week in the mid-range. There's some great running backs in the 5K range that I can't wait to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Ben and I discussed it on the First Look show. Spoiler alert, I probably like Rachaad White more than I should, but we'll get into that.
Buddy, I'm obsessed with Tampa Bay on this slate.
It's going to end so bad, dude.
Rachaad White is I ran a couple of lineups. It's so early. It's Thursday, and adjusting for the Rams news has been an absolute headache, but I feel as though I'm going to have Rachaad White as a top 3 running back in terms of my GPP ownership, no matter what happens going into Sunday.
I think I probably will too at that price point. Pretty wild. Maybe Tucker takes over and they end up splitting eventually, but I don't think that'll be the case in week 1. Well, let's wait. We're going to get to that game next. Let's get through this one.
Okay.
I want to get your thoughts on that. But with the Najee situation, I'm thoroughly unconvinced, let me say, that Jaylen Warren is just going to take over this backfield. I think the overreaction that you see in best ball circles sometimes can be so insane because it's an echo chamber. And then everyone becomes so ideological about certain things. I have to do this because this person said, these people are saying I have to do this. Is it possible? Absolutely. Do I think that's just happening out of the gate? No. Do I give a shit in week 1? I really don't, because there's so many running backs that I don't really intend on getting much Pittsburgh backfield to begin with.
Agreed. It's just a tough spot going up against San Francisco. The Bosa contract got figured out yesterday. Yeah, he's just going to
right after I finished recording my video saying he hadn't signed, by the way.
Oh my God. Welcome back, NFL season. That's more of an NBA thing that happens all the time in NBA, where it's I think we should target this guy, ruled out 2 minutes after you finish recording. But anyway, definitely a difficult spot for me to want to land on anything in terms of the running game. I think from either team, I'm going to put McCaffrey. I do think Eli Mitchell continues to eat into the workload. Why would you push Christian McCaffrey in week 1 on the road in Pittsburgh? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I don't think there's enough. Deebo Samuel, we didn't really see play anything north of a 50, 60%, the entire regular season at the tail end of last year. Looking through his snaps, just didn't really see the field all that much with the hamstring injury. Then he just gets unloaded come the postseason. He's just one of those hybrid guys that's going to make it difficult for Christian McCaffrey to go up and put up the 30, 35 that you're really looking for at that kind of a salary in tournaments. So him, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, if active, and if he's not healthy, I don't really think I'm looking at 2,500 Ross Dwelly or trying to force anything there. Although Brock Purdy, going back to Iowa State, that is my alma mater. He would focus in on Hutchinson. He would focus in, had some pretty good big wide receivers and some of these other short route guys at the tight end position when he was back at school. He's always kind of keyed in on that position. He had some rapport there with Kittle, but I do think the absence of Deebo Samuel for the last 4 weeks leading into the postseason had more to do with that emergence than George Kittle's just going to be putting up insane numbers with Brock Purdy.
I'm with you though. Deebo at 5,500 to me is still interesting because he can get it done, in a variety of ways. That price point, I wouldn't be surprised to see that creep up considerably as the year goes on. I like Deebo at 5,500. Once you get past that though, on the other side, Deontay Johnson, 53, fine, but it's a 13-game slate. I think 6% ownership is reasonable. Freiermuth, 6%. Najee's around 3%. I don't want to spend too much time on this game. I'll say personally, I think most of these guys are probably owned where they should be. I don't see any glaring issues, especially now that McCaffrey's come down to 10% and not 18%.
Absolutely. And Deebo is 5,500. If you're taking what you know from the best ball streets, where Deebo's going around 40, 5,500 is not the correct price tag for what his talent level is. And so it's just easy to make those kind of transitions as we head into week 1 from a DFS perspective. But what does that do for you? I don't really want to be playing Brock Purdy on the road in Pittsburgh. I don't think the ceiling is completely there. I know the elbow's healthy. I know everything worked out well for him in the offseason, but I don't really find myself landing on any of these stacks and trying to run it back with a Pittsburgh piece. I think for me, this is going to be completely the Pittsburgh passing game, which is a wild thing to say coming off of last year.
Tampa Bay and Minnesota. Tampa, 6-point dogs, 45.5-point total here between the Bucks and your Vikings. Let's see if they can figure the defense out this year.
Nope.
I'm not banking on him figuring it out this year quite yet. I actually already bet the over on this game, Eric, at 45.5. I think actually I got it at 45. I think you could see some points here. I mean, Kirk Cousins and company have a pretty electric offense. I have no doubt that Alexander Mattison, for the most part, should be fine in replacement of Dalvin Cook, at least early on. Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, what an upgrade that was. Jordan Addison drafting him early as well. But we're starting with the Bucs. And we hinted or teased at Rachaad White. I got to tell you, man, I think at least early on, can we for a moment assume that he is going to be the guy to start the season?
He will be.
Okay. He played
if Sean Tucker shows up later, I wouldn't be surprised. But Sean Tucker, it's mainly like Chase Edmonds, Keyshawn Vaughn were the other pieces sitting in that backfield. Like, come on. Chase Edmonds had his glimpses. He's been dust post Arizona here for the last couple of years. And Tampa Bay, Rachaad White has shown a really nice emergence in the passing game here. He had the trust of Tom Brady once upon a time, or that seems to be something that doesn't exactly go completely overlooked. But I feel as though this is just a pretty easy spot for me to look at Rachaad White and say 5,500 in a dome against a Minnesota defense that's given up gobs and gobs of fantasy points to running backs. It just makes all the sense in all the land. I think fourth in terms of running back totals against the Minnesota Vikings here last year. We saw Saquon Barkley just carve everybody up. No offseason additions that I feel all that confident about. I think Minnesota is going to just be a spot that you just target every single week, especially in this dome situation, because they're going to put up points on the other side of it. And Rachaad White, because of that security in the passing game, pretty easy for me to look at that and know, click. Like, I need Rachaad White at 5,500.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And the reason I asked you if you're convinced that he's going to be the bell cow, because early on, I personally am as well. Game script proof in a spot like this. If they fall behind early, you've got Baker Mayfield at the helm. Rachaad White's not going to disappear. And that's what I care about, especially when you're getting him at 5,500. To me, that is significant. So game script proof running back in the dome, 45.5 total game, which, by the way, isn't that low compared to some of these other totals on the slate. There's some sub 40 point totals, a handful of them to be exact. I think he's fine. And you know what? I'm going to be getting to some Mike Evans and some Chris Godwin as well. Maybe it feels gross, understandable. I get it. First of all, throw out anything Baker Mayfield did with the Rams. He had every pass catcher on that team, unless you want to include Tyler Higbee, whatever. All of the receivers were guys. I
was going to say, I value what he did with the Rams immensely, because
these guys,
Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell, as we're working through this today with Cooper Kupp. I mean, he had nothing. Nothing.
These guys weren't. A lot of these guys would not even be a wide receiver 3 on most teams. And I'm including Van Jefferson in that. Maybe he has a breakout year, but we certainly haven't seen it yet. So Baker Mayfield, and you could go back to like Amari Cooper and stuff. Yeah, sure. I understand that. But having Chris Godwin, he's a top 3-4 yards after the catch guy in the entire league. And then a guy like Mike Evans, there are some weapons here in the passing game. I get it. It feels ugly. Anything bad you want to say about Baker Mayfield, I'm not going to argue. It's probably justified. But that doesn't mean that against this Vikings matchup, as you astutely pointed out, that I shouldn't be taking some shots in a potential shootout.
You should absolutely be taking shots. And Baker Mayfield, I don't want to just, I don't want to steam it up in such a pronounced way. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, I don't think he carries the ceiling that you're looking for compared to some of these top tier quarterbacks, but he gives you a different lineup build. He has exposure to a game that I also expect to be shooting out in some capacity. I think he's probably, relative to chances of success, the most undervalued quarterback on this slate. But I'm saying that knowing that he's going to be like 1-2% more than likely. I saw that his ownership got inflated to around 4.2% here this morning as I was updating my sheets. And I found that to be fascinating because I think people are starting to key in on what we have, which is this Vikings defense. They were 24th in power rank last season over at PFF, and I expect that to regress. There aren't any additions. Nobody's getting younger out of some of the core pieces there, the Harrison Smiths and such. And I just find it such an easy thing to to be on the Buccaneers side of things, because as good as Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were with Tom Brady once upon a time, from a DFS perspective, we could target them every single week. I don't think Baker Mayfield is some washed up quarterback. I don't think he should be viewed as that. Carolina was such a setup to fail situation for any quarterback. And then he got to go to Sean McVay, work on some things, and showed that he could play even with nobody around him. The skill position players are so much better for him in this spot, and the matchup couldn't be a lot better.
Another thing too, when people asked in chat, and it's a great question, are you going to be, running him in a stack with Baker? Are you going to be running him as a run back in Minnesota stacks? I think you could make an argument for playing White as just a one-off in this game if you want. I think you could do the same for Godwin and Evans. I think you can stack Evans and Godwin with Baker. I think you can run them back with Minnesota stacks. And I don't think it's insane if you wanted to stack Rachaad White with Baker Mayfield. There may be some disagreement there. I don't think it's nuts if you wanted to do that. He's a talented pass catcher, and I don't think that's going to be super popular.
How about this? Pour one out for the guy. Salary-based expectations, very low when you're talking about a $4,900 Baker Mayfield and a $5,500 Rachaad White coming along for the ride. Obviously, we're looking for 25 plus from every single running back, regardless of what your salary-based expectations are here. But I'm feeling as though Rachaad White at 5,500, I'm going to have him in Minnesota stacks. I'm going to have him with Baker Mayfield. I'm probably only going to go single with a wide receiver in those kind of situations where Rachaad White would be the double. I won't have Godwin and Evans or Cade Otton or guys of that nature. I do think Cade Otton's probably the slept-on piece of this game. I've got him in a couple of hand builds that I have with the Minnesota side of this one, where I think you can go Cade Otton, Rachaad White, and run it back with 3 Minnesota pieces. I find that to be pretty serviceable. There's just so many ways. I mean, I think Joe Burrow's helped my brain, and then just going back and looking at some of the data through him, Joe Mixon can come along for the ride, even not being involved in the passing game, if games shoot out to that crazy extent. And obviously, I'm not calling Baker Mayfield Joe Burrow. That would be disingenuous, but it is definitely a situation where you have a cheap quarterback with a cheap running back relative to other pieces in that range. And then you have, I think, just the ownership is just so much lower than what I would expect against Minnesota in this spot.
King Zora said new defensive coordinator for Vikings should have better play calling. Yeah, it's Brian Flores, and he's a good defensive coach. Look at their secondary, though. Like it's still probably going to take a little while if this team gels defensively to get where they need to go. Brian Flores is great, but you have to look at the personnel as well.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite things. My buddy says this all the time, where he's like, it's hard to cook with old ingredients. Like it's just difficult. You look at Smith, you look at, obviously Hunter's going to be the calling card. If he's able to get pressure on the quarterback here, we're probably going to have some kind of success. That's always what it comes down to. But you look at our cornerback situation. I mean, it's Akileb Evans, who's just basically a nothing. I don't really know how to even critique him after the preseason. You've got Cameron Bynum out there at safety. You've got Harrison Smith with another year on the tires. He's just continued to regress. He was 37th amongst 88 safeties last year. This was somebody that we're paying to be a top 3 safety in football and roam and hit hard and do all of those things. He doesn't have that gear anymore. And as soon as he regressed, it's basically just been, if Hunter gets to the quarterback, we're going to be okay to a certain extent. But, I'm assuming Tristan Wirfs is going to be opposite of him. You're going to probably get a decent spot because Tampa Bay is pretty beat up on the right side of that line. They're starting a rookie here in Cody Mauch. So there's an opportunity, I think, for Hunter to get in there, pressure to the quarterback. I'll have some defensive shares of the Vikings as well. But for me, this is definitely all systems go on the Tampa Bay offense.
What are you doing with the Vikings here?
Is Justin Jefferson good?
He's not bad.
Okay. I like him way more than I like Christian McCaffrey when we're talking about positionality and kind of what that ceiling can look like. Obviously, he just crushed week 1 last season against Green Bay, 184 and 2 tutties in that spot. That was his actual highest fantasy score of the entire season. Not that he, regressed there later on, but went into Green Bay, had the worst game running that one back. That's for sure at the tail end of last season. But going up against the Tampa Bay secondary, it doesn't matter. Justin Jefferson is matchup proof. He is somebody that I know that he made that comment where Kirk Cousins wasn't in his top 5 quarterbacks. Can't blame the guy for being honest. It is what it is, buddy. So Justin Jefferson, I don't know really what there is to say. The guy had over 1,800 yards receiving, averaged over 100 yards a game. I think he's a positive touchdown regression candidate. Only 9 touchdowns last season. I think his ceiling is unmatched at the wide receiver position besides Tyreek Hill in the obvious game environment that we'll talk about later. And, Jamar Chase, I think it's just a question mark of how healthy is Joe Burrow? Are they going to just unload the clip early there? I think Justin Jefferson, if you're able to get there in tournaments, much prefer getting to him at the top end of wide receiver than McCaffrey at the top end of running back.
Well, now, actually, I want to just quickly, anything else you want from the Vikings? Because I want to get into this Tennessee game in New Orleans with Alvin Kamara suspended.
I think Jordan Addison's going to be an awesome wide receiver too. We saw Adam Thielen regress, and then he had one fantastic game in the preseason, and everybody loses their minds. But KJ Osborne is continuing to be ahead of him on the depth chart. I think it's just such a diluted spot here on week 1 where we have a 13-game slate. I don't think I need to be forcing any Addison. Don't think I need to be forcing any KJ Osborne. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson changed the complexion of this offense, and Kirk Cousins, going back to his Washington football team, or I guess it would have been the formerly known as back when he played for them. But TJ Hawkinson, he's just always targeted the tight end position at an ungodly clip. 16, 12, and 11 targets in 3 of his last 4 games at the tail end of last season. Love getting to that. I guess my last question for you is what to do with Alexander Mattison, because part of me knows what that looked like when there was no Dalvin Cook. We didn't see that in 2022. Dalvin Cook avoided the injury bug until like the very, very end with this shoulder deal. And you have Tyson Chandler, who I don't find to be all that appealing of an option. You have Myles Gaskin, who is nothing. And then you have Ngakoue, who basically is a kick returner. He's on the IR now. I don't know. I feel like I should have more interest in the 6,500 Madison, but I can save $1,000, go to White. And I feel like those targets and those snaps are just more secure.
Yeah, I think he's fine, but I'm not enamored with him because he's in that odd price range where I could go up or I could go down. They have a nice implied total. I'll say this, there's nothing wrong with Alexander Mattison at all in this spot. There's nothing wrong with him whatsoever. He's not somebody that jumps off the page to me as one of the best options on the slate. But if you're playing Madison in this spot where they're a touchdown favorite, with a relatively decent implied total, and he's minus 115 anytime touchdown score, to get in the end zone. I think they're perfectly fine. But I want to get into Tennessee and New Orleans with you because Alvin Kamara is suspended. We'll talk about that side. But first with Tennessee, you've got Ryan Tannehill, who, I think he deserves a little bit of slack after last season. 1, playing banged up through a decent amount. 2, who were your options? I mean, seriously, who did you have? You had a rookie in Treylon Burks. Finally, they started getting Chigakonkwo used a little bit more late in the season, but he was a rookie tight end, maybe the most athletic tight end ever, by the way. You can fact check me on that. They didn't have anybody. Who was their de facto number 1 receiver? Robert Woods?
Yep.
Nick Westbrook-Akine? Come on, man. Like, you have DeAndre Hopkins, you have Treylon Burks going into another year, Okongwu going into another year, Derrick Henry, you can talk about lack of efficiency, but again, what is a defense going to do when there's no pass catchers worth shit to defend? I don't like them in this spot against New Orleans, although it is a dome, but I think I'm going to be getting probably a decent amount of Tennessee in good matchups this season. I just don't think this is going to be it, but they're finally healthy. And that addition of DeAndre Hopkins, who I do not think is washed yet, makes them a really intriguing team going forward.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. 41.5. It isn't a dome. You're going to the Superdome yet again, and you get the Lattimore matchup. It's a fascinating situation here for
it's a tough matchup for Tennessee.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me. Obviously, I'm not a huge proponent of just saying, hey, cornerback matchup. I think that's a pretty overhyped situation, especially if DeAndre Hopkins reaches his ceiling. He's 6,900 though. That's the problem that I have with it is he's priced as though, I mean, he's priced above like a T Higgins. If you have Burrow, who we totally expect to be playing now, you got him above the Calvin Ridley in the game that I'm just in love with this week. And then Olave on the other side of this one at 6,500. I think Olave is going to end up being a very popular piece of this slate, and rightfully so. I think at 6,500, QB upgrade for all intents and purposes for him as well this season. But I don't think that this is going to be the spot for me to try to get to any Hopkins either. Would it surprise me if he went for 25, 26? Sure, but like I don't think you need to force it in there. I don't think he has the kind of super ceiling that you're really trying to target for Sunday.
Me neither. By the way, studio's starting to shape up, man. It looks good.
Thanks, buddy.
You should put those things on the wall, though.
So I have golf prints that are coming that I'm switching those out with, and so then those are going to get hung. I had some flags and stuff that were just kind of like filling the space for the time being. Did Josh's comments force you to take that down? Please tell me no. No, not at all. Okay. Josh is a piece of garbage and must be taken out.
You don't mean that.
Meanie.
You don't mean it.
Does that say Brokeback? Oh, yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Love you too, buddy.
It looks good though. The lights look good behind it. Man, isn't it amazing? What do you have strip lights behind the TV? Did you use the Philips Hue strips?
Yeah, so I've got the strips, but I have but I'm using them on. I bought these little stands that you're able to tap them onto so that I can maneuver them and move them the way that I want rather than just have them be solid to the TV.
I have the strips on the TV, but then I have other ones that are the bars that go around as well. Yeah. You can't see the one really lighting the guitar up. It looked so sweet. I was trying to get it in frame, but I got a little American Fender strap back there, and I had it under kind of like blowing up. And I was like, damn, that looks so sick, but it's too far away.
What's the white picture in the background there? You could hang it like right there. That would be so sick to get like the lights on that section.
Maybe I should move it. Maybe I should move that picture and swap it out with that. Yeah.
Oh, it would look pretty cool. So sick.
I know. I couldn't get it to work, man. I got relegated to the basement because we got the second kid on the way, which is good because if I'm doing shows at like 8:30 at night, I'm not trying to whisper. But
when's her due date?
November 20 something.
All right. I'm just saying, 29? So the Thanksgiving slate. You're going to be
it's going to be
building
so
lineups
brutal.
in the ER.
That's great. Brutal, man. Oh God, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Push Honey. Well, it's number 2, which I think gives you a little bit of grace to kind of like not be you've seen the thing now, right?
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Any interest in Derrick Henry here?
Feel like we should always have interest in Derrick Henry. I do find it very ironic how he slides in best ball drafts and then, you update everything this week. You start working through your stuff and it's like, oh, I have Derrick Henry for 18 fantasy points in a tough matchup against New Orleans. Maybe I should have been valuing him more, but we know what the super ceiling of Derrick Henry is. It's just him bulldozing dudes. I just do think one of the reasons that I kind of like the Tennessee passing game, I think they're going to run into spots where they just can't run the football. This offensive line is not very good. It's one of the bottom ranked offensive lines pretty much by every metric and every person in the industry that you read any information from. Like Tennessee's offensive line is not what it once was. And I do think that probably forces Derrick Henry into some of those like, hey, he either rips off a couple of 50, 60 yarders and goes way above salary-based expectations. Yeah, 7,800 there for everybody. But I just don't really see there being a priority. If I fall into some shares of him, sure. But my God, this is not going to be a Derrick Henry or bust spot for me.
I agree. Jeremy said, if Henry is high-owned, fade, low-owned, play. I thought that was always the plan. You know what? So you're not wrong. Like if it's a low-owned Derrick Henry, go for it. Like I have no problem with that. Again, we're going to get to some spots where it's just like, hey, they're fine. They're good football players in not great matchups. Maybe not a great offensive line, but they can go for 160 and 2, so that's Henry. That's Henry. And, I think on the other side, I've been waiting to get your thoughts on this side when it comes to New Orleans. The Tennessee Titans were clearly a pass funnel defense last year. There's no denying that. You look at Jamal Williams pulling 13% at 5,100. I think that's fine, but I think he's also massively touchdown dependent here. Now, the other question, though, is what happens if Kendra Miller is out, which I think is likely going to be the case because he didn't practice yesterday. If that happens to be the case, then it's just Jamal Williams all day. But one other wrinkle comes into effect here. Is Taysom Hill getting goal line carries again? Like, are they using him and sniping him? Do you know how many games Alvin Kamara had a touchdown last year, and how many of the full season of games he played? Do you know how many games he had a touchdown?
I'm going to guess 3.
2.
Oh my God, I was high.
Yeah, no, but you were right there. I should have been like,
I know
11.
He had 4 touchdowns.
I wish it was 11, so then you just throw you off entirely. But 2 games.
Wow.
2 games where he had a touchdown. Is that fluky? Obviously. Like, that's not something that if you ran that season back again is going to happen. But I'm just saying there are so many ways for these backs to lose touchdowns. And that's my only concern. So how are you playing a relatively chalky Jamal Williams at 5,100 with no Kamara? And my guess, no Kendre Miller.
Well, our Sims loves Jamal Williams. So I will throw that out there. Like, that is the one thing that is wild about my exposures right now, that I think I would have to be trimming this down. I think I would have to be taking the old ROI boost and hitting the negative button a little bit. But he was my highest owned running back leading into this show in my crunches and everything that I was putting together in the Sims. And Jamal Williams, he's so difficult because we saw it in Detroit. The guy can get 2-3 touchdowns at the 1, at the 2, and you don't know what to think of it. But completely different football team. I don't think as good of an offense around him. I think a better defense behind him than what you had in Detroit. You're not going to run into as many shootouts. You can see that in the total here. And then he's touchdown dependent. And you have Taysom Hill, who, new coaching staff, I have no idea what to be making of Taysom Hill in this situation, what his role is going to be here. They're listing him as a quarterback. They're listing him now as a tight end because they got shit for listing him as a quarterback, trying to play with this new system with the emergency QB or whatever I was reading yesterday. But Jamal Williams, there's no doubt that at 5,100 that he's going to be a piece of this slate that we look back on and say, yeah, duh, Jamal Williams was going to get 25 touches here in this spot. And I think for me, if you end up getting into a situation, I'm with you too, where I think Kendre Miller does not end up playing. It's a hamstring injury. It's a
still not practicing.
It's a dicey spot to be putting him in there. I think you're going to end up getting Tony Jones Jr. playing back up there. Pretty wild to think that he might have some kind of contrarian relevance on an early slate. But I do think 5,100 with no Kamara, assumed no Miller, that this is a spot that at 5,100, he's just way, way undervalued, probably going to be a click for too many of my lineups at the moment.
I think Olave at 6,500 makes sense. Awesome. So does the field. Michael Thomas at 5,100 is the one that I go, that's interesting. Juwan Johnson's relatively cheap, sub 4K, 2% ownership. No issues with that. He should still continue to be a threat in the red zone. But, the return of Michael Thomas, assuming he can stay healthy for more than a game, I think throws a wrench into that a little bit because they didn't have much at all last year. I mean, it was like Rashid Shaheed behind Chris Olave as your number 2 in the latter stages of the season. I think a mid 6K on Olave is fine. I don't think 6% Michael Thomas is crazy either. The slant king. Do I love him? No, but 5,100 in large field tournaments against a clear pass funnel defense isn't crazy to me. My only issue again though is does Derek Carr have all the do they trust? This team likes to be run heavy. They like to use Taysom Hill. How do you approach the stack here for New Orleans? Because it is objectively a good aerial attack matchup.
Yep, it's phenomenal aerial attack matchup. And I think you're going to get the leverage. Jamal Williams is as popular as what he is in my lineups. There's definitely a part of me that just goes back to the idea of what's the path of me bypassing Jamal Williams' failure? I can't imagine that everybody on the New Orleans passing attack isn't in play, considering 32nd in total yards. Tennessee's secondary gave up over 275 yards per game last season. And now you're running into Michael Thomas, who, for all intents and purposes, looked awesome in just the 3 games that he played last season before falling off the map, and we've completely forgotten about him. But that makes him an awesome target at 5,100. You don't know what that Derek Carr preference is going to be. And that's one of the things of the preseason is you can look at who's sharing the field for a snap count for a first quarter for a quarterback. If somebody gets, Hyatt looked great for the Giants, but a lot of that isn't with Daniel Jones. And you're trying to figure out how you're going to be factoring in some of what you saw in the preseason. Michael Thomas just being healthy makes me at 5,100 be man, what if he's back? What if he's not dust? What if, a lot of what ifs, but you're also getting the ownership discount to try to find that out. So you want to be early to the party, not late on guys like this, where 5,100, you would laugh at this for the rest of your life if you saw this price tag 3 years ago at the height of his powers. He's not the same guy. I don't think he's going to be like 100% of that dude, but like if he's remotely close, 5,100 is a broken tag against Tennessee. So Chris Olave, definitely the priority for me, more of the known quantity. He is just electric. And Michael Thomas, I think you got to look at some doubles to run the two of them together. I don't want to get crazy with Derek Carr at the quarterback position on this slate, but I do think Michael Thomas, you've laid it out. Tennessee, not exactly ideal at covering the old run, the wide receiver position.
I'm with you, man. You know, the more you and I kind of talk through, this is why I love this show, because we can bounce ideas off each other and kind of talk through these type of things. That's why we need to have a full out game by game show, even if it takes long. The more I look at it, the more I think like a 5-6% owned Michael Thomas in this matchup in the dome with a competent quarterback makes a lot of sense. I know Derek Carr loves to throw deep. Doesn't mean he's good at it. Loves to throw deep. Chris Olave benefits there considerably because Andy Dalton threw deep very infrequently last year, and Olave was good even when he did. But that Michael Thomas, 6%, good yards after the catch, slant guy, always open. That's a good spot.
Bug Boy says something very interesting in chat, and this is kind of what, from a DFS angle, we have to be thinking about more. He said, Michael Thomas is this year's Allen Robinson. He very well could be, but do you know the difference between Allen Robinson last year and this? Is Michael Thomas, there's no expectations at this kind of ownership. Like there's not, you can't look at, like Allen Robinson was played early on last season until everybody was just like, I am done clicking this dude's name. Like he is dust. He is done. Not talking about him anymore. But what if Michael Thomas is functional? Because then 5,100, you're looking at him being 55 or 5,800. I guess salaries will come out a little bit earlier, but he could be crazy popular if he pops against Tennessee. It happened last year with Michael Thomas. He had 2 touchdowns. I don't know what he did for everything else, but I remember week 1 last season, the guy put up 2 touchdowns and everybody was talking Michael Thomas was back. And then week 4, doesn't play the rest of the time, doesn't play the rest of the year.
It's a risk tolerance thing is what it is. If you're willing to say, hey, I don't have an issue taking a stab at a low owned, but also low cost receiver who only 3 years ago was the best receiver in the National Football League. I don't think you fault somebody for doing that.
6.7% ownership in our run, and I would be shocked if it got that high. In the best matchup you could have ran into in 2022, didn't make any kind of extreme changes to the secondary here in Tennessee. For all intents and purposes, same coaching regime, should be able to still just watch them stop the run ad nauseum and then completely get lit up in the secondary because this is a passing league. So you're looking at the 20th ranked defense, according to PFF coming into this season. I definitely think that we want to be getting shares of Michael Thomas at this ownership.
This is a fun show, isn't it? Isn't this a fun show?
Oh, yeah.
I love this show, man. I look forward to it every week. You guys watch and always make it better, too. Make it even better if you hit that thumbs up. Get us to 100. All right. Next game up, Houston and Baltimore. Before we do, though, I saw the comments in chat earlier. Someone had mentioned, they're like, hey, how do I get my free month from the owner's box sign up? And then a bunch of people responded with like, hey, I got mine. It took 24 hours. Yeah, it takes 24 hours. If you do it now, I assume, and you email us, that they will expedite the process for you to get in before tonight's slate, because we have the Sims tool, right? The NFL Sims tool, the contest generator for that. So now when you want to build your lineups, you don't have to go anywhere else. You can generate all the lineups there, simulate all the lineups right there. We can run the Sims tool on this show too, if we have some time. Give you guys an idea of what that looks. It is such an awesome tool, man. We have it for Showdown. We have it for Owner's Box. We have also, you used to have to get like Stochastic plus Platinum separate, Sim separate, somewhere to generate the lineup separate. Now it is all in one spot. Ownership, player projections, the Sim tool, the lineup generator, contest generator, player projections, Discord, all of our data, all of our tools, everything in one spot. And when you sign up at Owner's Box, I'm going to tell you about Owner's Box. You're going to love this site. You're getting the entire month, $199 value. Our Sims Max, not our Sims data package, our Sims Max package, $199 value, free. This isn't just the best promo we have. It's the best promo you're going to find in the industry, hands down, for two reasons. One, we have reshaped our tools in a massive way heading into NFL season, reshaped the package for those of you football lovers out there. And two, Owner's Box, first off, has a $500 first match deposit bonus. I maxed it out of the gate. I did a whole tutorial on it. You can find it in this channel. I had never been on there before. I reviewed the whole thing, signed up, maxed the bonus out because we're not getting these great bonuses other places anymore. They also have Superflex contest, which is awesome. As Ben Rossa put it on Tuesday, Superflex is unsolved. So does it give us maybe a slight edge to try and figure this out? Does it not put us behind the 8 ball against some of these best players? It's totally possible. $50K up top, $200,000 prize pool over there on Owner's Box for week 1. Our Sims tool has Owner's Box already incorporated into it. The link is in the description. The link is in chat. You want a free month? You want the first deposit bonus up to $500? You want to play Superflex for a shot at $50K up top? What the hell are you waiting for? Also, 10% minimum deposit or $10 minimum deposit. That's it. However, my suggestion, if you have it, if you don't, no big deal. But if you have it, max these bonuses out because you're not going to get it a month or 2 months from now. It's the only opportunity to get it. That's why I maxed it out, because they're not giving it to me in October. I'm stoked for this, man. I'm really excited for Superflex contest.
I'm excited about bonus matches on first deposits. That's perhaps my favorite thing. I like getting money into my account to be able to check out a product and see if I like it. Why don't you do the same? Just try it out and see for yourself, because again, Superflex is the absolute best. Anybody who plays college football DFS, obviously I wish I could spend more time to be able to build things out. Probably not going to be able to play the entire season. I was able to dabble the last couple weeks, but Superflex is the absolute best type of gameplay. You avoid the defenses, you avoid all the other stuff that we still have to critique and figure out in a high variance scenario when it comes to DFS. But I absolutely think Owner's Box is going to be an awesome product for years and years to come. Go give it a try. Again, getting bonus matches and first match deposit bonuses, that's how you build and sustain a bankroll. So, do it.
Yeah, man. Link in this. If you want the free month, you got to use the link. Otherwise, we cannot track you. You also get a free Lightning Lineups ticket, $5 worth. They have that format. And a free $5 DFS ticket on top of all of that when you sign up at Owner's Box. And my God, there is some overlay. You're right, Jake.
Oh, yeah.
My God. Oh. Holy shit, dude. It's at 908 out of 16,000.
That made it sounded like breaks of day.
That's why I did. It's the Cartman. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys over there, and join our Discord when you get the free month too. Houston and Baltimore. All right. So we have to work through some of these games quickly. So let's pick our spots. All right.
This is not one of them for me.
I think Houston is a pretty easy spot to work through. I'm not getting to a lot of Houston. I don't have any intentions on trying to figure out if it's going to be Robert Woods or Collins or Tank Dell or John Mechie or Dalton Schultz against this Baltimore defense in Baltimore as 10-point dogs.
Xavier Hutchinson, shout out Iowa State. I have nothing from Houston. I have nothing, legitimately nothing. I think this Pierce thing has.
Oh, I thought you were saying this isn't a game that we were going to be able to rip through.
Oh, we're going to rip through it.
Oh, okay.
No, God, the opposite.
I'm thinking, fuck, man, if he's going to spend 20 minutes on this, we're going to be here till 3.
CJ Stroud is 5,400 going into Baltimore. What are we doing with that tag? Yeah. That's not ideal. It's a diluted target share. I don't know what to do with Collins, and now Woods is there. Mechie, does he end up suiting up? I assume he does, but they've been very cautious with this hamstring injury. So I guess it looks like that Kendre Miller situation where I guess I can't say one has a hamstring injury. I don't know how to assess it. All I know is that it sounded like Mechie was going to be ready to rock for week 1. But then you have Tank Dell, you have Hutchison sitting behind them there as well. It's so gross. I think if you play anything from Houston, it's Dalton Schultz and move on with your life.
Only because tight end kind of sucks.
Correct. And also tight end, it's probably one of the most underutilized run backs. Like one of my favorite things when I'm building out double stacks is the run back from the tight end position where they're sub 5K. Because of the salary floor and how it's changed with running backs in the previous years, I was going through data this morning that, just kind of going through some of my old lineup builds and things. And it seems as though this has been my preferred build for now 2 years, where I've been trying to get to sub 5K tight ends as the singular run back from a double stack with wide receivers. The problem for me here is that CJ Stroud, I mean, I just don't think he's very good. I do think that there's hope for Bryce Young there in Carolina, but I was never a big CJ Stroud guy there. He had one of the best wide receiver cores on planet Earth at Ohio State. I mean, they were just unbelievable with Harrison and Smith and Jigba. And I know that they were dinged up from time to time, but God, the wide receiver core that you have in Ohio State, it's way better than he has here in Houston. And now you're going into Baltimore. I have zero interest.
All right. Well, on the Baltimore side, I've got to tell you, I'm gonna tell you how I view this game and get your thoughts. Okay, I think that'll be a better way to set this up or view this Baltimore team. I could see Dobbins finishing with 80 yards and no touchdowns. I could see Dobbins finishing with 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. I could see Lamar Jackson being pedestrian and they lean on the run. It'll be interesting to see what new offensive coordinator Todd Monken does and implements. Does he use his running backs as pass catchers? Interesting to see. Sure. Gus Edwards, I think, will get a little bit. But, Dobbins in 24 career games has never seen more than 18 carries in a game. He hasn't been involved as a pass catcher. But at the same time, looking at this passing game, Lamar Jackson's 3% owned. Mark Andrews is 10%. Every other receiver is either 2% owned or less. What if they just completely throttle this Houston team? And Houston allowed a league worst 172 rushing yards per game last year. I get it. D'Amico Ryans can come in and fix this defense. I don't know how quick that is going to happen. This could be a game where they either just completely bludgeon them on the ground or they decide to open it up a little bit. I'm scared that I'm not right now intending on getting to a lot of Baltimore, because if they put up 45 points in this opener, I wouldn't be shocked.
There's 2 rushing totals that I've bet that I'm going to be talking about on NFL Lindy's Leans Likes Locks tomorrow, recording Friday night over on the Odd Shopper channel. But J.K. Dobbins, 57.5 rushing yards. That is very, very low in my opinion. And
I had that on my video yesterday, brother.
Oh, buddy, we're thinking of the same mind there. 32nd in rushing defense, this Houston Texas team is. And also, they traded up in the draft to get one guy. One guy does not a defense make, and Houston is going to be atrocious yet again this season. I think one of the dark horse situations in like for this entire season really is like the J.K. Dobbins, can he stay healthy experience? Because when he's healthy, the guy is outrageous. He averaged 4.8 well, I'm looking at the wrong thing. 5.5 5.5 yards per carry last season in 105 totes. You can't tell me that isn't something that just pops. Like, for me, that pops. And he can be one of those guys, this offensive line. We know that, the way that Harbaugh likes to do things, J.K. Dobbins, if he stays healthy, could be a running back that just we talk about week in, week out. And if he separates himself that much from a Gus Edwards here, and I do think Gus Edwards is just a great handcuff to have, or just a guy in best ball that can end up popping because J.K. Dobbins is always hurt. I mean, you could talk about Dobbins week in, week out, and even Gus Edwards last season, 4.8 yards per carry. Now you're facing Houston, and I think that both of them just really, J.K. Dobbins stands out for me in a crazy way. And then Lamar Jackson, I want to ask you this one because I'm having a tough time figuring out how I want to handle. I think Bateman is awesome. I think Zay Flowers is going to be a really good wide receiver piece for them, and Mark Andrews is there, but I don't know who I could possibly want to be pairing with him. I'm thinking about playing most of my Lamar Jackson based on ownership naked. And I know that that's not a popular thing to be doing anymore. And it's very, very difficult. I believe it's 12% of lineups are unstacked still to this day and age. And it's just so hard to be able to achieve your upside and know exactly how to build the rest of your lineup without the double stack, without the single stacks, without, the run backs and things of that nature. But I'm playing Lamar Jackson naked, it looks like, in most of my stuff. What are you going to do with him?
No issues with that at all. I still really like Mark Andrews too, though. By the way, got Dobbins at 55.5 yesterday. That was at 55.5.
So ridiculous. It's not as ridiculous as Bijan Robinson's rushing prop to me, but J.K. Dobbins is just a smash.
What was Robinson's at?
71.5.
I mean, they're going to just run the ball down Carolina's throat. That's all they care. You have him under or over?
Over.
Yeah, they're just going to run the ball down their throat. That's all they did last year. They don't want Desmond Ridder throwing 35 times a game.
Yeah, and Bijan Robinson is like Saquon Barkley to me, where when healthy, you're just going to Bijan Robinson is a freak. He's an absolute freak. If you played college football DFS and you watched him play at Texas, you know what I'm talking about. He single-handedly carried a terrible Longhorns football team to like doing actual things. Like, this guy is hashtag special, and be early to the rushing props. From a DFS perspective, they made him 8K, so I don't have to think about it that much. But yeah, I'm all about the over this rushing props.
Love it. Anyway, I still like Mark. Mark Andrews through the first 5 weeks of the season last year had the highest target share in the entire league until things started to. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Until
things started to, kind of disintegrate in Baltimore. Mark Andrews' target share was absolutely through the roof. So, yeah, I mean, look at his first 7, 11, 13, 5, 10, 11 targets. Massive target share for this guy. Then things went south. Aaron in chat said, and by the way, I'm with you. If you want to take some shots on like a Bateman or a Beckham, fine. I don't really want to double stack Lamar here, but maybe you go a little bit weird. I get that. Aaron said Dobbins doesn't score touchdowns. In his rookie season, he had 9 touchdowns on 134 carries. Don't think that he's not going to get opportunities. Last year, he was in and out. He had that knee injury. I'm not worried about touchdowns whatsoever, at all. All right. That's a fun game on the Baltimore side. It's just so intricate because you don't know what's going to happen. Let's talk about. Sorry, go ahead quickly.
Just to round it out, because I think the difference between last year and this year, and the issue I'm having with trying to get to Mark Andrews and being pairing him with Lamar Jackson is, well, one, Mark Andrews is 6,200 at the tight end position, where routinely you're seeing success paying down so that you can build the double stacks that you want in other places. It's a positionality thing. And then 2, Bateman, he was out the entire tail end of last season along with Lamar Jackson. You get Odell Beckham into this situation, which I'm not high on him by any means, but it's just another body that I know will be loud and want to be fed. And then Zay Flowers, I think, is just way better than the Devin Duvernay, than the James Proche that they had last year that they were running out onto the field at a way too high of a clip. So Isaiah Likely isn't exactly some zero tight end either. The guy had an awesome week 2 there in that shootout against Miami that you needed to have in DFS last season. And it's just, there's so many other pieces there for Baltimore that I'm having a tough time knowing how I want to handle Lamar Jackson. So I'm just finding ways to be contrarian with it.
Jacksonville and Indy. Here we go, man. Richardson, who knows how accurate, if accurate at all, he's going to be. If you're stacking him, I don't see any realm where you can double stack Richardson in this spot. Yeah. Deion Jackson. What if Deion Jackson gets the same workload that he did last year when Taylor was out? But Zach Moss didn't have a non-contact jersey on, so he might play. You have 5th-round rookie Evan Hull as well. I'm not too concerned about that, but I think if Zach Moss is active, that makes it less interesting. If he's out, I will actually 4,100 Deion Jackson will appeal to me, because I do think that you could see a lot of work for him only because he's essentially minimum salary. How are you playing the Colts here? And then we'll talk to Jags.
The Zach Moss injury is gigantic. I mean, Zach Moss had 18, 15, 12, 24 touches towards the end of last season. And we saw Deion Jackson come in and he was electric at the beginning of the season when, in reserve of Jonathan Taylor. That Denver game on Monday night was an absolute, I mean, he was the only good thing that happened in that entire football game.
Then he got hurt.
And then he got hurt. And now you're looking, they were very cautious with him at the end of last season, as they should have been. Zach Moss, they basically wanted to see if there was any tread on the tires. Had some really solid years at Utah behind a good offensive line there in the Pac-12. But I find Zach Moss to be so I can't play either of these guys if Zach Moss is healthy. I'll just find other ways to get to 5,500 and such. Jacksonville, I'm in love with this football game if you have Zach Moss out, where I'm just going to get to all the Deion Jackson and there'd just be no way around it. But Zach Moss, I am expecting to play here. It sounds like he's trending in that direction, and it just makes it very unappealing from that perspective in the running game. Where I have all the interest in all the land is the Jacksonville side, and then Anthony Richardson, I'm probably going to play at a way too high of a clip and probably regret it later.
I get it. I totally do. Pass catchers for the Colts, I'm okay just not having a lot of that. If you wanted to stack Pittman, fine. Like, I still don't think Pierce yet is makes all that much. Like, if you're stacking Richardson with a $3,900 receipt, I don't know. Get some
Kylan Granson is at least like on the realm for me. He's 2,900.
Yeah, Woods is on the IR. Yeah.
Woods is on the IR. Our guy, rip to us. That's not an enjoyable experience. Yay, best ball. But Kylan Granson coming out of college, he was like the guy. He was at SMU, I think it was, and Rice. But he was just a really well-touted tight end and never really showed up, but he's relatively young here. I mean, he's 2 years in the NFL now. He's 24 years old at the moment. I think he's a pretty decent piece. And I mean, it's just been terrible quarterback play. You had the corpse of Phillip Rivers, the corpse of Matt Ryan, the corpse of Carson Wentz. What are we doing
Sam
here,
Ehlinger?
guys? Sam Ehlinger, for the love of God. So like, I think it's difficult Michael Pittman's so good that he's able to overcome it and at least be functional because he's just that good of a talent. But I think Granson, if you have Richardson making plays with his feet, getting some opportunities to extend plays here against Jacksonville, and you're coming from behind here for sure, you have an opportunity to play Kylan Granson sub 3K, 1% ownership, just a guy that I'm running into some of my Jacksonville run backs as well.
We had a free super chat member for 13 months, over a year, for Ryan Rennebaum. Rennebaum? What's up, guy, Ryan?
Rennebaum. Yep.
Ryan's always hanging out in here with us. 2v2 Bateman and Washington defense or Samuel and Carolina defense. I'll be honest with you. I think you probably find the $200 to try and get Samuel and Washington defense, because the Panthers deep. Look, I'm perfectly fine playing any punt defense, but I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta runs the ball 35 times here. Like even Tyler Algier gets 10 carries and Bijan gets a lot. I think the upside on that Carolina defense is kind of low, but if I had to choose from one of those, it would definitely be Samuel and Carolina defense. I'm never choosing a defense as the priority in a 2v2 over the wide receivers. And I value Samuel over Bateman for sure at their price points.
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay. Yeah, I figured we'd be on the same page. I mean, it's yep. Pretty easy logic right there, right? So,
yep.
All right. Do this for the sake of time here.
Yep.
We're fine, right? But it's not like we have anything up against. But
we're checking in. We're testing the water. Yeah, we're seeing where we're at.
The whole like take your time but hurry up type thing to both of us. We're fine. We're getting our feet back underneath.
Ready, shoot, aim.
Yeah. Travis Etienne, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, all of these guys, maybe even Zay Jones. How are you prioritizing this Jacksonville side today? Or this week?
Playing so much of them. Calvin Ridley, oh man. I know he got steamed in best ball. I know that we're all excited to be watching him out on a football field again, but this goes back to the whole Matt Ryan thing. The guy was dust. And I think Calvin Ridley just extended his career in hindsight. I think he's that electric of a talent. You saw everything that he did in the SEC, everything that he's been capable of doing here in the NFL. I would bet on him. He would probably bet on himself if we're being honest. So Calvin Ridley, I'm absolutely behind at 6,500. I think the difficult thing for me is what we expect Christian Kirk's role to be, because there was obvious rapport that he had with Trevor Lawrence. That was probably one of the highlights of last season from a feel-good perspective. Christian Kirk gets absolutely torched for his contract. People are calling it the worst contract in NFL history. All he does is go out and put up over 1,200 yards, nearly 100 catches and 10 tutties. Trevor Lawrence made the jump in the post, I can't remember his name, the Ohio State coach once upon a time, the guy who's just dipshit. Looks great here. Your boy Peterson came in, revamped Trevor Lawrence, built him from the ground up here sophomore season. Feeling really good about this Jacksonville team. I bet them at 28-1 to win the Super Bowl. They're 25-1 now, pretty much everywhere. This is a team that I think has all the right pieces. The AFC is insanely competitive, and that's why you're getting a good price there. But I do think Calvin Ridley, his addition, what we saw from Evan Ingram in the passing game too at the tail end of last season, he can take in some volume and be pretty successful. 85 catches and 890 at the tight end position. Think he's going slept on in a lot of capacities. I just love Jacksonville's offense. I think they're going to put up points against everybody this season. I think that starts here in Indy.
I love it. By the way, I just got a DM from our customer service guy, news guy, El Negro Loco. And he said, we have a lot of requests right now from the owner's box promo. So just bear with us, but we see them. We know they're there. We're working through all of them. So keep that in mind. He said, we have a lot of requests in there, which is awesome. I mean, people taking advantage of the best promo out there for sure. Link in the description, or in the chat if you want to get in on that if you missed it earlier. Cincinnati and Cleveland. Joe Burrow's not on the injury report. He's ready to go here. Ben mentioned on the First Look Show Tuesday that he likes some Cleveland stacks and some single entry and 3-max stuff. Yeah, he likes some. I think Cleveland. I think Cleveland wins this. I actually bet them. I bet Cleveland first half money line. I think Joe Burrow. Yeah, I think Burrow could come out a little bit rusty in this game. Honestly, he had a decent hiatus there. Cleveland at home in the dog pound to kick off the season. I like Cleveland first half money line, but you can check out, of course, all of my betting picks for every game on the Odd Shopper channel. Are you guys subscribed to the Odd Shopper channel yet? Eric's been putting out killer content for MLB picks for every game. He's got his Lindy's Leans, Locks, and Likes coming out on Friday for NFL. I got picks for every game, cover every showdown slate. Aton's got some, dude, Aton's content on there is awesome.
It's fire.
It's the best, dude. I'm telling you.
It's probably the one video that I look forward to. Well, he always tags me and everything now on Twitter because he's got this rift with Elon at the moment. That's just, it's fantastic.
Well, maybe he shouldn't have, with a verified account, changed his name to Elon Musk. Just maybe he shouldn't have done that.
Why? I don't understand.
Go ahead.
It's fine. But Aton, this guy, yeah, he'll tag me and stuff all the time. But it's the one video that just watch his intros. And once you see the guy introduce a video, he's just hashtag different. The guy is so special. You need to be watching his videos on the daily. It's
great content, man. And Ben's content, Greg, everybody. So check out our Odd Shopper channel if you're getting into some betting action. And get $250 for free on Caesars, guys. You bet 50. Well, you bet 50, and if you win, you get your payment. And you also get 250 in bonus bets. I put the link in the description and chat for that. Turn your ad blocker off because it's weird with that. You bet 50. If you lose, you get 250 in bonus bets. If you win, you get 250 in bonus bets. Maximize your bankroll heading into the season. I promise you, it's the best thing you'll ever do. Sign up on as many books as possible. Take the free money that they're giving you and know that going into the season, you have a lot of money that you wouldn't have had otherwise. If you've got $50 laying around, throw it on this because if you win or lose, you're getting 250 in bonus bets over at Caesars. Fantastic offer, man. And most of you guys probably aren't there yet. So check that out as well. Just throwing that out there. If you're going to check our Odd Shopper channel out, you got to be 18 years or older to gamble. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, dude. How about this? What are you doing with the Bengals in Cleveland on both sides of this one? And are you stacking this game with a 47.5 total?
Yeah, 47.5 in Cleveland. Not your or my grandfather's Cleveland Browns. That's for sure. You get Cincinnati. We've seen so many times that they can just create these game environments out of nothing. It's not Miami and LA. It's not going to pop on paper in that kind of a capacity. But Joe Burrow doubles. They've been a print fest for a year and a half now. It's just been insane to watch what he's capable of doing and bringing everybody along for the ride. And that includes Joe Mixon, who I think is my favorite running back play. If I'm just creating
things,
of
the week,
so of the entire week, let's talk through this because I think this is my big stand in best ball. This is my big stand on the entire season. I would say, who the fuck is there in Cincinnati besides Joe Mixon in the running back position? I am blown away that people just have been staying away from Joe Mixon. And I know he had that hiccup, the kerfuffle at his house and a bunch of whatever. And so I was kind of just waiting. I was like, oh God, please don't get suspended.
Dude, all he did was threaten to kill somebody. What's the big deal?
Anyway, Joe Mixon from a football perspective has nobody behind him there. And
all he did was say someone should shoot you in the head. That's all he did.
Chase Brown, a rookie running back there. You had Chris Evans, everything else. But the huge thing, the thing that cannot possibly be stated enough that I can't believe Best Ball Bros and everybody else isn't just a highlight and star, Samaje Perine was good. Samaje Perine was actually good at football. The guy was relied upon constantly in pressure situations, had 109 rushing attempts last year, 7 touchdowns, got more involved come playoff time, was involved in the Buffalo, the KC spots, was on the field more than Joe Mixon in a lot of those third down scenarios. Who is going to be that now? Because Chris Evans can't block you or me from rushing the quarterback. So I understand that he has a passing game role. I understand that they're going to have him out there in those type of situations. I understand also that Demetric Felton, he's now with the practice squad. There's going to be times where maybe he can come in and be like a change of pace back. But like Joe Mixon is alone by himself, 6,800 here going up against the Cleveland Browns that was 25th in rushing defense last year, 135 yards per game. I don't know what I'm missing here, but nobody wants to click on Joe Mixon. And if Joe Burrow is going to be active, everybody becomes engaged on the Cincinnati side. I'm in love with Mixon week 1.
Look, I'm not going to dispute any of that. And I'll just say that Mixon is my second highest owned running back in best ball on DraftKings this year. I also was drafting him outside of the top 50 spots because people were worried about him being cut, which we knew wasn't going to happen. People were worried about the suspension, which was unlikely to happen. All of that. There is no one else behind him. You already mentioned it. Samaje Perine played a significant role. Quality enough pass catcher. Not a bad running back himself. He's gone. Chris Evans, Chase Brown. Yeah, sure, they looked fine in the preseason, but that tells us nothing. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to run Joe Mixon until the wheels fall off, and then they're going to cut him loose. I just don't know if I love him as much as you do this week specifically. I like Joe Mixon's role. I love it. I just don't know if I love him this week, but maybe I have a blind spot. I'm perfectly open to acknowledging that.
I mean, Cleveland rushing wise was one of the more, I think, sneaky spots on the board last season.
Sure.
And working through some of the pieces, what's changed?
Yeah, Adam Bomb Mother said Mixon was the 8th highest scoring RB in 2022. Also extremely misleading. I'm not trying to, rain on the parade, but he had
terrible efficiency numbers. He was horrendous.
Well, he had one game where he had like 5 touchdowns. Remember against the Panthers?
I'm trying to remember. He had 4. Yeah, that's right. He had 5 total. That's right.
5 touchdowns, and I think 4 of them were in the first half. So you can't just say, if that game didn't happen. But I'm just saying it was one game that made up the bulk of his production. Look, I don't have any disagreements with you. What you're saying is you want to target a bell cow running back in a high-scoring game. How am I going to argue that?
Yeah, it's a high-scoring game, and I just think it's a better matchup than people probably think that it is. Again, Cleveland's got a good defense, but they don't have a good rushing. They don't have the ability to stop the rush necessarily. It's a lot of cornerbacks. It's a lot of matchup based stuff that they're able to do. And I just think it's a little bit more sneaky than the field does at this moment in time. And it's a player that I'm pretty invested on for the season. So regardless of this outcome for week 1, I just think I want to be early to the party on Joe Mixon, 80% plus of snaps, which I think is a realistic expectation.
Look, I'm not going to argue that at all. Where do you go with the rest of this game?
I don't know. David Njoku's probably my second favorite piece of the entire thing. He's 4,200. He's currently the 3rd highest owned tight end in our projections. And well, I think that's rightfully so. He's athletic. He's a freak. And another year, this is the unknown, I think, of Deshaun Watson. Do we see what we saw at the tail end of last year, or do we see the upgrade? Because it seems like everybody's just assuming that he's going to get back to some type of the Houston Texans form that we saw. I'm not positive. I don't know, but I do know that from a price perspective, David Njoku makes a lot of sense here on this slate. Amari Cooper, we know what that can happen, or any given week, he can be that game changer, 5,800. But I think I like him more as an individual play. And then Nick Chubb, super ceiling, comparable to that of Derrick Henry. Any given week makes sense, but do we want to try to make this matchup here against Cincinnati, who was pretty good against the run in 2022, 5th at best in rushing defense, a thing? I'm not positive that I do.
All right. Man, I want to play Nick Chubb so bad, and I just don't think it makes sense. It's
so hard to pay up at running back this week, in my opinion.
It is, but he's just so damn good. He is so good, and Kareem Hunt is gone. He is so good.
Yep.
I don't, I love Nick Chubb. I don't think I get this week though. I'm probably living in that mid-range and beneath it a little bit. And by the way, shout out to you guys getting us north of 100 likes. I know it's a long show. You can listen to it in spurts, intermittently, whatever gets you through it. But we're doing our best to really break down every game for you. This is by design, especially for those of you that only have time to listen to one show, albeit a long one. This is your one. Arizona and Washington. All right, I'll tell you this much. I could see James Conner being semi-viable in a spot like this, but that's as far as I'm willing to go. I don't want any of these pass catchers with Joshua. It looks like it's going to be Dobbs and not fifth-round rookie Clayton Tune. I'm okay just not playing a team with a 15-point implied total this week. On the other side, however, I want you to hit it all encompassing here, but I got to tackle this on both sides. Terry McLaurin was limited. It looks like he could play. He's expected to play. I didn't think he would. I would have loved Jahan Dotson. Now, in this passing game with Sam Howell, I'm a little bit less inclined to feel great about it. I think Logan Thomas is interesting if you're trying to dumpster dive at the position for tight end. But I think Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are both viable in this offense. And I'll tell you what, this is an Arizona offense that's going to be terrible. Do not overlook how bad this defense is going to be. Outside of the safety position, they could have one of the worst run defenses and some of the worst corners in the league this year. All in all, complete dumpster fire on both sides of the field for this team. The Washington run game intrigues the hell out of me this week at lowest price points.
Somebody go trade and get Budda Baker out of there. Can we?
Why, yeah, seriously.
Please, somebody go get him because
it was like Xavier Howard. Remember when he was the last one left when Miami went for the rebuild and he kind of just goes like, all right, I'm still here, guys. Remember that?
Dude, Budda Baker is incredible, but this is probably the worst defensive line in all of football. There's Gardick on one side, Collins on the other, both outside of the top 50. I guess Gardick rookie, but Baker is so electric and covers up so many holes. He's kind of he's the Harrison Smith of the Cardinals, and in an equal fashion, going to have a terrible defense around him. I think by default, that creates some intrigue for McLaurin, Samuel, and the running back position. I'm going to have decent shares here. Dotson would have been everybody's highest owned player. And Curtis Samuel out of the slot. Don't sleep on him either. 7.5 grade, 40th out of 113 qualifying wide receivers in 2022, according to PFF. So I'm feeling as though you're going to have shares of them. I think Sam Howell is somebody who can make plays with his legs as well. We saw that in North Carolina. We saw that in one game here in the NFL, but in the preseason, we've for sure seen it from Sam Howell. I like getting to pieces of this offense, but nothing's going to be a priority. The best play from this game, unquestionably, is the Commanders' defense.
Don't disagree with that at all. At all. I do think this could be a spot, though, where the running backs have a huge game. We've seen it before. I remember against the Eagles last year, they ran it 40-plus times. They ran it 46 times, I think it was. Now, granted, that was by design. But if Arizona's offense is as putrid as we expect, right? They have the lowest total on the slate. It's south of 16 points. Mm-hmm. I think the tough part is going to be figuring out which one of these running backs gets the job done. But if Robinson has 20 carries for 100+ yards and a touchdown or two, I won't be shocked. I really will not be shocked if that's the case. This Arizona defense is putrid.
Is it as simple as playing Gibson on DraftKings and playing Robinson on FanDuel? Just because it's such a clear cut, Robinson's going to get all the groundwork for the most part, and Gibson's going to be in the passing game?
It's possible. But you also have the 100-yard bonus on DraftKings where
True.
I think Robinson could hit that on the ground. Would you be shocked if he had 100 and a touchdown?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, the guy got shot last year, like carjacking situation, horrible situation. Again, one of the better stories where he was able to overcome that. Guy gets 17 touches in week 6, literally less than 2 months removed from getting shot, which is just insane to me that they gave him that much work right out of the get-go there. Coming back, he got ramped up from like 9 touches to like 17 rushing attempts there that week 6 against Chicago. But Brian Robinson Jr. can really motor in what's your prize tonight. So I feel pretty good about the opportunity that he has behind this offensive line that I don't find to be all that bad. I mean, you get Oleno and Wiley, and I guess the left side isn't as ideal for sure. But I'm with you. I think that you want to have shares of this passing game, especially considering both of them sitting right around 100 in best ball. I think that that's appropriate. And then you're getting this discount because it is an unknown. 5,200 for Gibson, 5,100 for Robinson, both of them priced in a place where against Arizona, as correlation with the defense, perhaps too, even though that's not necessarily something that people think about anymore. I think it makes some sense.
Okay. Brian Robinson was involved as a pass catcher in the preseason too. Kind of interesting. All right.
Preseason, that's so hard.
Look, I'm not reading into this. I'm just throwing it out there that he was in fact used a little bit there. All right. Carolina and Atlanta. We won't spend. I'm first of all, 3 Panthers wide receivers are questionable. DJ Shark did not practice. Neither did Adam Thielen. Both of them with like hamstrings or something yesterday. Terrace Marshall Jr., whatever. Jonathan Mingo is your 2nd round rookie. He's the wide receiver 3 right now. I'm not playing the passing game here. I also do not imagine I'll have a ton of Miles Sanders. For me, I look at this game and I'm not excited about it. I think Atlanta runs the shit out of the football, but I also think that Algier has some role still. I think Bijan Robinson is very expensive for his first game, sub 40 total. Desmond Ridder, if they can get him to throw 18 times, they're going to be excited about that. So I don't know how often I can get to a Drake London or a Kyle Pitts. You tell me on both sides what you're doing with this game. I don't think it's going to take us all that long.
No, this is probably the game that I have the least interest in on the entire slate, barring Thielen, Chark, and Marshall, all of them on the Carolina side. That could turn into Mingo and Shenault by default. Like, you could just end up having to be there.
Yeah.
I would prefer the Rams side if we're talking about the complete stone cold cheapies, just because I think that there's one guy specifically that I am highlighting based on what we saw during the Baker Mayfield. Nobody emerged during the Baker Mayfield situation there, is what I'm getting at there, that there's a new face in town out of BYU that we'll talk about later that I'm going to have way too much of. But feeling like this game, complete write-off. Bijan Robinson's 8K. That's a problem. Miles Sanders, 5,600. Don't know what that involvement's going to look like with him and Hubbard in the same backfield. God, it's a gross football game.
It really is. And I think the Atlanta defense could actually be significantly improved this year with a lot of these free agent acquisitions that they made. Yeah. Philly and New England. That would suck for anyone that was coming here to hear about Carolina, Atlanta. There's only so much to say.
They talked for 20 minutes about Tampa and Minnesota.
Yeah. Philly and New England. I felt like this spread should have been wider than it was, which is what scares me. This is what makes me think New England keeps this game.
Spot.
It feels like a trap spot. But on paper, the Eagles are so much better, like everywhere, than the New England Patriots. The problem is with the Patriots, Devontae Parker limited on Wednesday, by the way. Keep that in mind. I think Elliott could get legitimate goal line work, and I said that before any of these rumors came out the other day. Ramondre Stevenson, fine, but like, look what the Eagles just did with the middle of that defensive line. You got some big, ferocious fellas in there that could make life tough. Ramondre Stevenson is a pass catcher, no doubt. You get some speedy linebackers in Philly now too, though. Like, they're going to play slow, even if there's a good game or two here. I think at every position, I think I can find a better option than I could on New England. What about you?
Yeah. So to get goal line work, you have to get to the goal line. And I don't know how New England does that against Philadelphia. Philadelphia looks like a juggernaut yet again this season. It's such a tough spot for me because, again, New England's defense, no pushover. It never is. And as you said, I do think that this spread could have been a little bit wider and it wouldn't have shocked me. It's just such a trappy, this entire game has such a trappy look to it for Philadelphia. I think because of what we have from a price point, Hurts 7,800, Brown and Smith both north of 7K. They're easier to write off than it would appear the field thinks that they are. But I am definitely looking at Philadelphia defense as kind of like my favorite thing to be getting from it. Philadelphia has 4 running backs now on the roster. You're going to have Swift, Penny, Gainwell. That'll be fun to be paying attention to all season long. And the best running back of all of them is Jalen Hurts. And now you've got Dallas Goedert, 5K. It's so hard to land on anything here against New England. And then the New England side, I have relatively zero interest outside of like the blind shot on Stevenson here and there.
I'm with you. The only thing I'll say is I have tepid interest in a couple Eagle stacks because I think they're going to be very low owned at their price points. If you can make that work, we know that they're an elite offense. We know that the Patriots defense certainly isn't, bad, but it's still Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, DeAndre Swift likely in the passing game, but he's too expensive. Jalen Hurts, like there are big weapons, big time weapons here. If the Eagles explode, I wouldn't mind a single stack with Jalen Hurts and Brown or Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith.
So I don't mind that at all. I will say, I think that they make like an intriguing, there's 5 games in the afternoon window. I think everybody's going to want to be playing a little bit of that, especially if our lineups are dead after half an hour when, God, what would happen? Like, I don't know. Joe Mixon going nuts would be great. But let's say you're playing the early games and you don't have any Anthony Richardson and he busts off a 60-yard touchdown run and you're late registering. I think Philadelphia is like the star highlight. I would jam them with the Jalen Hurts double in that 5-game window. And then it's pretty easy to make the Rams wide receivers work in those kind of builds, have 1 or 2 of those cheapies on that side of the ball to fill it out. But on the full 13 gamer, it's so hard for me to look at salary-based expectations. Yes, shout out once again. But Jalen Hurts, it's so hard to look at him at 7,800 and both of those wide receivers north of 7K, mainly because you go back through some of those games last season where you really had gigantic spots. Devonta Smith was a mid 5K wide receiver, and now we're going to be paying north of 7K for him and Brown. Yeah, the super ceiling is there, but is on the road in New England the priority spot for it? No, but maybe the ownership does reflect that, and maybe you're right about that.
No, I think you're right. And also in that late slate, you're going to see super inflated ownership on Chargers Miami. Big
exactly.
Inflated
That's why
ownership.
It's star highlight Philadelphia for that 5-gamer, because would it surprise me if you just saw Eckler fail and you had Stevenson as the run back for a lot less? Wouldn't shock me to see Philadelphia, New England be that sneaky one in the late window, but very difficult to land on for the 13-gamer for me.
Yep, for sure. AJ Brown, though, in that Week 8 Pittsburgh matchup was essentially unowned and broke the slate last year.
He's so good.
Crazier things can happen. Let's talk about Miami.
Finishing it out, AJ Brown from a volume perspective drives me nuts, but as much as we want to say, oh, well, what, he had 101 catches last year. So I just want to throw that out for everybody who saying that, he's not the volume guy. He's just so efficient and he's so physical and just smashes some of these slates. So blindly play him win on. He's like the wide receiver version of Derrick Henry.
Pretty much. Used to be on the same team.
Oh, those were fun times, huh?
Riley Cooper with a super chat. Any love for a Redskin stack? He's, for those of you unfamiliar with the former name, he's speaking about the Commanders.
They're going to end up being pretty popular, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's doable. It's not like Dotson and McLaurin aren't good. If Logan Thomas plays and you just want a dirt cheap tight end, I don't think it's insane, but I'm not excited about him. I like the running backs there. I do. Honestly, I like the running backs in Washington more. Miami and the Chargers, 51-point total, highest on this 13-game slate. Jalen Waddle was limited yesterday in practice. He expects to play. Jeff Wilson, by the way, on the IR. I actually want to start off with the running backs on both sides. What are you doing with Eckler? You'd mentioned him at the top of the show. And also, what are you doing with Raheem Mostert now that Jeff Wilson Jr. is out?
So Kellen Moore getting the offensive coordinator duties. This is going to be an absolute headache. I think Austin Eckler is a huge touchdown regression candidate this season. He had 20 last year. 217 attempts on the ground, but you don't bring Kellen Moore in and say, you know what? I think we need to give Austin Eckler the ball more. It feels like a spot where Austin Eckler is the best spend up out of any of the running backs for me, comparing him to McCaffrey, Chubb, Robinson, but this is purely a game environment going up against Miami. I have way more interest, I think, in Raheem Mostert on the other side and just being overweight to it. Jeff Wilson on the IR. We did see that Devon Akani, he's going to end up being active here. He was a full practice participant yesterday, so I think he's good to go here. Salvin Ahmed, he's not good in any way, shape, or form. I do expect Mostert, though, to get the majority work there by a pretty hefty margin, 5,400, going up against a Chargers defense that, yes, brings Bosa to the table, has some pieces that look really, really nice there, but they always have pieces, and it always seems like you're able to attack them anyway. 27th in rushing defense last season, 144.2 yards per game. Raheem Mostert, a really great tournament option here in a game environment that can't be emphasized enough.
Who was the first guy you mentioned? It's A-Chain.
It's A-Chain?
Yeah, I honestly, I went on the depth chart.
No idea.
Like, fuck, I don't know who this guy is. Yeah,
never.
It's weird. I had to look that up when I did a video earlier in the season. Yeah. Did you say he's full practice?
Full practice yesterday.
Okay. But I still think the reason he fits this team and the reason they drafted him is because like everyone just operates in space in this Miami offense. Mm-hmm. And that's how they're going to use him, right? How else would they use A-Chain? Maybe he gets some groundwork, but Raheem Mostert, do you think people forget that because he's been injured so often? Do you think people forget that he's actually not bad? He's also extraordinarily fast.
He's incredible. Raheem Mostert was hashtag special, and there's a reason that McDaniel went out and got him. You know, the familiarity that he had with him in San Francisco. When you handpick a guy like this, I mean, he handpicked two of them. He took him and Jeff Wilson with him. Went out and got Mostert, and I don't know. It feels like a spot where we're making so many insinuations about what the role could look like for some of these running backs. I think it's very clear cut to me that you look at who's behind Joe Mixon, that I prioritize him above all in terms of tournament plays on this slate at the running back position, but he's also $1,400 more than Mostert. And A-Chain coming in there, I do expect, as you said, I think that he's somebody that could be something for them down the line, but he has been out of practice for a while with this shoulder injury. And do they just give him all of the work compared to Mostert, who's now been there for a year and a half and has multiple years with McDaniel there? I would assume not. So I'm putting Mostert at around 65-70% of the snaps here at running back. I don't see anybody else really coming in besides A-Chain. Ahmed is going to be just there in like an emergency type role, but this is definitely a great spot at 5,400 for Mostert.
I want to fade the passing game here. I don't want to, but I want to. Okay. I just think this game, you know what I mean, right? Like I don't want to in a like if you were to just say what's the best game, yeah, obviously. But man, you could just wipe so much off the map if you were super underweight on this game. And you know, you look at some of the highest owned receivers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, three of the 7 highest owned receivers are from this game. I loved my highest owned best ball stack by a mile. Like if Tua gets hurt, I'm done, is Miami. I have so much Hill, Waddle, Tua lineup. So many of them. I still like them. They can beat anybody, right? They're awesome after the catch. They're great in space. They create insane separation. It almost doesn't matter who they're facing. 51 point total. Mike Williams, 5,700 on the other side is too cheap, unquestionably, especially knowing like Quentin Johnson isn't even expected to be the number 3 to start the season. Gerald Everett, I think, is nice. Obviously, Keenan Allen can always put up strong numbers as your possession guy. All I'm saying is like this game is so popular. This game could still score a decent amount of points and not have the optimal plays from it. So how do we approach it?
Jalen Waddle had 1,400 yards receiving, Tyreek Hill north of 1,750, with way more snaps against nobodies than with Tua Tagovailoa last season. Like when Tua was there alongside both of those guys.
No, Tua missed 4+ games. So.
No, that's what I'm saying is that they played a lot of games without Tua Tagovailoa.
Right.
And just to see those kind of receiving quantities, and now you get Tua hopefully back healthy, ready to rock here, because again, he didn't play in the playoffs there. It is going to be a fascinating situation there. Yeah, 4 or 5 games that they missed alongside of it. You could be looking at an offense that has Tyreek Hill go for 2K plus, and you could see Jalen Waddle go for 1,500. It's just so unbelievably concentrated. I think that makes them like a can't miss type play on this kind of a slate. I mean, Tyreek Hill, the ownership is there, and Waddle, he was a limited participant on Wednesday. We'll see what that looks like coming into the Friday practice report, but for all intents and purposes, he will be active and he'll be ready to rock. I'm feeling pretty confident that Miami, I'm with you. That is just going to be an electric duo to stop week in, week out. And this is unfortunately a very glaringly obvious spot, and that's why the ownership's going to come along for the ride. But there's no doubt that they are just the best. If you're looking for one double stack to just blindly play on this slate, playing Tua, Hill, Waddle makes the most sense to me.
It absolutely does. It's also probably why you and I are going to have a lot of guys like Rachaad White and some of those, because that's an expensive stack. I talked about this either yesterday or Tuesday, but I want to mention it to you because you'll find this interesting. And for anyone that wasn't in those shows, you know, I think this stat is very pertinent. and I've been using this for best ball purposes on DraftKings because they have the same scoring with the same bonuses. So last year, there were 5 100-yard games. Okay. If you guys already know it, bear with me because I've mentioned it before. 5 100-yard games for Miami. And 4 of them were from 2. I believe 1 was from Teddy Bridgewater. Unfortunately, our friend Skylar Thompson wasn't in the mix. Tua also missed half of 2 games. So probably would have had like 6 or 7 total 300-yard games. In those 300-yard games, Eric, of the 5, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, remember, 3-point bonuses for 100-yard receiving and 300-yard passing games. Tyreek Hill and Waddle had 9 combined 100-yard games in those 500-yard games, which means 4 of them, they both had 100 yards. And then on the 5th, one of them had 100 yards and the other one didn't. There are no other viable pass catchers here. Someone said in chat or in a comment the other day, dude, you're like, you're what are you talking about? Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft or whatever. Like, they're not bad. Okay. If that's the path that you want to take, fine. But without any question, the best duo in the league with 0 competition for target share, with Durham Smythe as your tight end, the best duo with 0 competition for target share in the entire league, hands down, unquestionably, it is the Miami Dolphins. And that's not a question.
It's an answer.
It's think about it. Name me one other team with a top 2 duo like that doesn't have anybody else of recognition whatsoever.
I'm pulling something up here too, because I just have to know out of last season. Where is it? Why can I not just get total yards? There we go. So Jalen Waddle finished 7th in total receiving yards in the NFL last season. Tyreek Hill 2nd. How many 1,000-yard receivers were there even? 22. So 2 of the guys are on the same football team. They were both in the top 7 in receiving yards. 75 catches for Jalen Waddle, who's known as more. I think he has a massive ceiling in terms of what those receptions could look like. Only 75 receptions for him last year. This was a volume receiver 2 years before that. Like, we're talking, there's a massive ceiling for the Waddle Hill. Now, Hill probably, he's just going to continue what he always does. He's going to put up over 1,500 yards if healthy. He's going to go for 7, 8, 9 touchdowns and you're set. But like, the Jalen Waddle piece, I think, is like the intriguing part. He's 7,100. I'm going to have more of him than I have of Hill in this football game.
I have no issues with either of that at all. And I like most of it. Look, like I said, when I said I want to fade this, I just meant it's so appealing. And I know how that usually ends. You know what I mean? Like, it's so appealing and it scares the hell out of me. On DraftKings Best Ball, I have 20% Waddle and 20% Hill. That's a lot. I mean, I 100 lineups. I couldn't get it. I just didn't have the time to get any more than that. But yeah, that's a decent amount. And I love these guys. And
it's also a ton of like first and second round equity for these guys.
For sure. Right. Oh yeah. I paid a lot for them, but there's no one else in the offense. There's nobody else. Mike Williams is too cheap. The ownership it makes sense. Gerald Everett at tight end. I think there's some logic to that. Just quickly break down this Chargers team and we'll move on to this next one. This should be fun.
I do not believe anything about this Quentin Johnson being behind Josh Palmer thing, but I find it very difficult to pull the trigger on that in anything that isn't like the 5-game afternoon slate. Same way that we just talked about the Miami double. You look at the double that you could have with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, makes a lot of sense, although I think my priority is probably rotating Austin Eckler because of the goal line and receiving work that he gets. I would probably try to filter him in with Mike Williams just for $1,600 less. But it seems like the field might be doing that as well because you are seeing more ownership coming in on him in that regard. That's where I think Gerald Everett's probably the slept on piece here for me. Again, what happens in Kellen Moore offenses? You see time and time again, the tight end position just smashes. And Gerald Everett, I find to be one of the more undervalued tight ends in best ball this season. I think, we know what that ceiling can look like alongside Justin Herbert. And well, you got to find some savings here for this game stack. When I'm doing that, I'm getting to a ton of Gerald Everett.
Me too. It's really not a good tight end position.
No.
At all.
You brought that up time and time again. It's so true though. Like Mark Andrews, I feel very uncomfortable with. I prefer Hawkinson because I like the Tampa Bay, Minnesota game in that game environment. Kittle's banged up. And then everybody's 5K and below. and projected within like 4 fantasy points of each other. It is impossible to try to decipher it. So I'm just taking the game stack approach where I'm piecing together a tight end here, a tight end there. And it seems like this game, I need to have somebody that's on the cheaper end. I don't feel good about any wide receiver on the Miami side. I don't feel good about anything with Quentin Johnson, Josh Palmer, or anything there yet. I probably will down the line because I do think Quentin Johnson can be that good. But that only cheapie that I can really find that is somewhat affordable here is Mostert on the Miami side and Everett from the Chargers side.
I agree. All right, man, we still got almost 400 people watching with us as we close this out for the final 3 games. By the way, guys, the lineup, we talk about all the tools. If you wanted to just go lineup generator, it's awesome for NFL. It's $14.95 for the week, but Showdown. It has Showdown. Link is in the description and in chat for that. It is built for main slate and for Showdown, and you can adjust the game script. So like if you think a game is going to go a certain way, you know how in Showdown you're always building lineups out with that in mind. You can now adjust that, all of that. And that's going to make a massive difference on how your lineups and what they look like. You can create all lineups, chalky lineups. You can, Mike's doing it right here. Like, see, you can right there. You can see, you can boost players. You can or teams. You can knock down teams. And then the lineups are already simulated thousands of times. We're giving you plus EV lineups. You can save them, upload them to CSV. It's optimized for your phone. It's optimized for mobile. You can see what the optimal projection is, what the ownership is, how chalky or contrarian it is. You can save it, whatever lineups you want, discard the ones you don't like. And then once you're done, right there, you can see all your exposure, your stack exposure. It's super sweet, man. If you're looking for a lower entry point on something like this, that is the best. If you're looking to go all out, this is included in the full package with the contest generator, the Sims. Sims are taking over the game. You know what I mean? And ownership, player projections, top stack, Discord. I mentioned it all at the top of the show. All of our tools, 15% off. We've never discounted the Sims before. They're now discounted 15% off the Sims Max package, the Sims data package with all of our tools. You don't get it and then go, wait, I need this too. No, none of that. If you get the NFL package, you're in. You have every single tool necessary to create excellent plus EV lineups every single week. Links in the description for everything. 15% off all of those packages right now. Won't be there for long. All right. Rams in Seattle. I don't really want to play much. Maybe I'll have a little bit of Cam Akers, but with Cooper Kupp out, I'll let you take the bullet here and tell me which one of these Rams receivers you want to play and how much Tyler Higbee you want to get to. I have real concerns that without Cooper Kupp, that this offense will be very, very inefficient again.
Oh, it's going to be very inefficient, but Puka Nacua, I'm going to take my shots with him.
Yeah, I knew you were going there. I don't know.
3K Puka Nacua. I think he's actually pretty good. Looking some of the stuff from BYU, once upon a time, he's been somebody that's just gotten steamed in best ball towards what? I mean, just to fall inside of the top 225 for him was pretty incredible, but who else could it be? That's what this comes down to for me.
Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek.
Ben Skoranek is the special teamers. We have Van Jefferson, who last season had all of the opportunity and all the land is the only piece there, and he couldn't separate himself. And Tutu Atwell is a burner. He's just a guy who's going to go out there, run a straight line and burn. And if you get that big play, awesome. But Puka Nacua at least has like the profile of somebody who could end up being a go-to wide receiver. Probably the only guy Matt Stafford has talked about highly in any capacity this offseason. You got Matt Stafford's wife out there on Twitter saying like, oh, he's not relating to the young fellows very well on this football team. That doesn't seem great. But Puka Nacua at least has like the profile of somebody who could be a professional receiver in the National Football League. So like, if nobody is going to click on that button, nobody, and maybe this is just more reserved for like the 5-gamer afternoon slate where you're able to play the Chargers game and he can be your cheap run back there. I think Puka Nacua could end up being the most slept on piece of that game. I know we don't have him projected very highly here, but it's just one of those outlier situations. You run into him every single season where a guy's just on the field way more than you expect. And I look at everything from Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson. They had all the opportunity and all the land just alongside Baker Mayfield. So yeah, it's maybe a little bit of a QB improvement here if we assume Matt Stafford to be healthy. And Tyler Higbee's probably the guy who gets 10, 12 targets and people end up playing at a proper rate here. But if nobody's going to click on Nakua, I'm at least going to try to make that a thing.
I'm okay with a 3K guy. I'm fine with it. Especially if you're stacking that Chargers-Miami game. You're going to need some discounts somewhere. I'll tell you that much. On the Seattle side, Walker, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting spot for sure. Hey, this Rams defense could be pretty bad this year, guys. And this Rams secondary could be pretty rough this year as well. I don't really have an issue targeting taking a multi-pronged approach to this Seattle team this week, be it, DK Metcalf, maybe some Lockett. I don't know how much Smith and Jigba I'm going to get to, honestly, but I have no problem with Seattle stacks with some Geno. And yes, I like Kenneth Walker. He is popular, but he's 6,000 flat. I think he's just grossly underpriced in this spot when you compare him to other running backs. They are almost a touchdown favorite. They have an implied total that is not going to scare anybody off of them. Against the Rams defense that could absolutely struggle this season. They may not admit it, but this could be a rebuild mode for the Rams sooner than later. 26-point implied total for Seattle. Walker could have himself a heck of a game, and he's fully healthy.
This is the highest owned running back on the slate, and he should be. 6K, Zach Charbonnet sitting in the backfield. Again, that's an uncertain role. Pete Carroll offenses, you never know what's going to rotate in because people are hurt, and it's so hard to go back through game logs and project what you would have had for the snap shares had certain guys been healthy, because it seems like somebody's always dinged up. But coming into this season, having a pretty clear picture of what we're going to get, Kenneth Walker is going to get a ton of work. Zach Charbonnet, I don't think is going to rotate in as much as what the best ball bros do. And then looking at DJ Dallas, he's just an emergency type back who can play a little bit of a pass game role if need be, has some familiarity with the offense. So I'm with you. Kenneth Walker, 6K. It's not a good tag going up against this Rams team that I'm with you. I don't think is very good. I think this Rams defense is going to be one that we're going to want to attack most times this season, which feels weird to say since Von Miller left. And then Von Miller, we saw his absence actually mattered to the Bills last season as well. I definitely think that Kenneth Walker probably, well, if you're not going to click on him, then this passing game also becomes intriguing because Geno Smith might actually be good. And that's a weird thing to say out loud.
Yeah, no, the whole team looks very good this week. The whole team looks very good, from Gainwell to Metcalf to Geno, all of them. I like all of them this week for Seattle. I certainly do. And Metcalf's not cheap, so that's why he's only going to be 8% owned. Lockett's 67. That's the one spot that scares me a little bit. $6,700 on Lockett. But anywhere you want to go with Seattle, I think against the Rams at home, with the 12th man, yeah. Oh, yeah. This team, I like them. 46.5-point total. They have a 26-point total. I like it. Green Bay and Chicago, pretty much a toss-up here. Chicago 1-point favorites at home, 42.5-point total. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs didn't practice yesterday. Both of them with hammies. Keep an eye on that, guys. Mm-hmm. Seriously, keep a close eye on that. I don't know. My assumption is that they're good, but it wasn't like limited practice. It was didn't practice with a hamstring. We may be forced into talking about like Jaden Reed or something come, $3,000 when this game kicks off. But I'll say this much because I want to get out of here before 1 Eastern. I like Aaron Jones this week.
Yep,
I think LaFleur is going to lean heavily on the ground. I like Aaron Jones over rushing props. I like him at his price. There's nothing I don't like in this spot. Chicago has made some improvements to defense, but they still have to prove that this run defense can plug up those holes. Tajay Spears tore them apart in the preseason, and that was their starting defensive line, their starting defense. Look, very small sample on that, obviously, but they have to prove it. And I think that you could see a lot of rushing work from this team, especially in the event that we see some guys out for these wide receivers for Green Bay. I like Aaron Jones in this game.
Sneaky football game, right? Like this one actually has some sneaky fantasy goodness, and a lot of it is going to come down to the Watson, the Dobbs, looking at what happens with them specifically, because the Reed would stand out, but then Musgrave would become the best play on the slate at tight end, like 2,900. You might maybe even have cash considerations for him in some capacity. Just go down and punt with him completely and build out, Chargers and Miami game stack and be ready to rock in cash. But I'm with you. I think Green Bay, Jordan Love, when given an opportunity last season, looked pretty competent, looked pretty good. Played against like the second stringers from the Philadelphia side in that football game, brought them back a little bit, but that was pretty much the only time you saw him. So it's just a complete unknown what that's going to look like. But Reed would look awesome if there was no Watson Dobbs, and Musgrave would become probably my favorite tight end play on the slate in the event that those guys were out. But I think that's going to be have to wait and see approach. This could also be one of those like late swap opportunities where that news is still pending on Sunday morning. We'll talk through it on Live Before Lock for sure, but feel like that's just going to be something that you don't really know what that's going to look like until it's in front of you. And then it's going to be too late in future weeks to be able to mine out value from it. So I'll blindly play Reed and Musgrave if those guys are out.
Okay. What about on the Chicago side? How much Justin Fields do you want? Do you want it? Khalil Herbert's intriguing to me. Green Bay's run defense had some struggles last season for sure. I don't know. Is it going to be Donta Foreman getting additional work too? Possibly. I think Khalil Herbert, though, getting the passing down work, if they even throw to the wide running backs with Justin Fields in there, that's yet to be seen. But ultimately, I think you could make arguments for a lot of pieces in this game. I don't love the pass catchers for Chicago, but if Fields more stack, fine. Fields maybe Kmet stack, fine. Khalil Herbert, I think, is at least viable at his current price point. Break down the Bears for us.
I think Kmet is probably my favorite run back. Again, it just falls into that portfolio of if I'm stacking up the game or if I'm trying to make a thing for Justin Fields. Cole Kmet, 4,400. I'm getting the discount. It's a position that I'm willing to punt. Hard to use wide receiver positions for me on more Mooney. Claypool is healthy and going to be out there as well for this week, which, again, they traded for him for God knows what reasons last year. But DJ Moore, we've seen him be very, very good with worse quarterbacks, with no quarterbacks basically and terrible coaching. So DJ Moore, you could blindly play him and Fields as a single. I don't think I'm going to be doubling Justin Fields in any capacity. You know what you're trying to get out of him. That's rushing, and 26th against the rush last season, where the Green Bay Packers definitely was a funnel for them. Not a great opportunity to improve anything there. It looks like they didn't really make any changes. Green Bay, you're going to attack them in that capacity. I don't know how I'm going to decipher between Foreman, Herbert, and Johnson there, but from the get-go, Justin Fields seems like a pretty good rushing candidate here in this spot.
Yeah, he certainly does. You're right. This game has some sneaky potential. Let's pay attention to those Green Bay receivers. That could get weird. That could get real weird. And you might just be forced into looking at a guy based on lack of competition at the position if we have some guys out. All right, Vegas and Denver. Here we are, guys. Give yourselves a firm pat on the back. We've made it. We've made it. Man, some thorough analysis, though, I must say.
First time talking football this year. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And the great thing is it could be week 15 and I have the same excitement talking about this. It doesn't matter. Jerry Jeudy was limited and he might actually play.
It's insane.
Which is wild because they were talking for a minute about putting him on the IR. He might play. I'll say this much. If he doesn't play, I will go to some Cortland Sutton. I'm also thoroughly unconvinced that Russell Wilson is just fixed now because Sean Payton is in town. Sean Payton's good when it comes to getting his QBs to kind of evade that pressure and get the ball out early. He better be, because if there's one thing this Raiders team can do, they can bring pressure. I think they could give Russell Wilson a run for his money here. But at the same time, like, this Denver defense is good. Only reason they were competitive last year. And the funny thing is, look at their record. They weren't competitive. Look at their games. They were hyper competitive every single week, except that one blowout loss to, forget who it was, where they just got trashed and then Hackett got fired. Maybe the Chargers. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Christmas Day, maybe. But, dude, I tell you what, Josh Jacobs lit them up at one point last year. I think if he's low on, that's at least somewhat interesting. The passing game for Vegas, though, if you're paying for Devontae Adams, you have to know that Patrick Surtain and company are very good.
Yep. They are very, very good. So you have a great cornerback crew on the Denver side. And the Vegas side, if you drop back to pass, you have Max XX Crosby out there just making life hell. This is a tough football game for me to get a grasp on what I want to do, because it's pretty clear cut to me that you want to be throwing it against the Chargers, 29th in passing defense there. But if you have Jerry Jeudy active for this football game, which is so wild, Cortland Sutton, it takes a lot of the shine off of him and Marvin Mims, who I find to be an electric piece. He would actually be my favorite 3K wide receiver on this entire slate, with the, even with Reed pending and all of those guys sitting there on the Green Bay side, if both of those guys are out that we just talked about, and the Rams side for sure. I would prefer Mims over all of them against the Raiders, but there's also the opportunity that Russell Wilson's terrible. So there's
wait. Even if Judy plays?
No, if Judy is out. If Judy's out.
I'm 100% in agreement there. If Judy plays, Mims to me looks a lot less appealing.
Yeah, I still think he ends up being the main wide receiver 3 for this football team, considering it's Dorsett, Hamler's out, Tim Patrick, on the IR. He ended up having that major injury in preseason. So I am feeling as though Marvin Mims would be a complete zero for me with Judy in, but he would be my favorite play with Judy out. Probably gets the slot in that kind of a situation too, which is wild to say. Maybe Dorsett ends up rolling in there, but feel like we got to just... what are you doing with the running backs here? Because Josh Jacobs, I feel like, is so undervalued, and I feel like Williams at 5,700, Javonte Williams, how far are they going to push him coming off of an ACL where he's just ready to rock? But Sean Payton had these press conferences saying that, Javonte's going to have a huge role with our team leading into this game. And I have no idea what to make of that, because I find Pirine to be #good.
I'm not touching the running backs for Denver.
Okay.
Obviously I could land on someone, but what I would like to do is not play the running backs for Denver.
He's popular too. Like Javonte Williams is 8.7% owned. It's not nothing.
I'm good on it, honestly.
Okay.
There's too many 5K running backs for me to go, all right, guy. First of all, miraculous recovery. Shout out to Javonte Williams. But what was it, like the PCL, the ACL, the MC? Like, it was everything. But
everything. It was horrible.
I'm not convinced that he's going to come in and just be a bell cow. Like, I think Pirine's still going to get worked in early. I don't know how much faith I have in this O-line. I don't know. I don't see why at almost double-digit ownership in what I think could definitely be a backfield committee early on, why I would want to do it.
Mike Lawrence, just Broncos country. Let's ride. Broncos country.
So wrap this game up for me. We're up against it. Wrap it up for me.
Yeah, cool. Feel like on the Vegas side, there's this guy, Devontae Adams. He's tough to stop from time to time. Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback. I don't know what to make of it. Probably going to have more Jacoby Myers than I have of anybody else on the Vegas side. Devontae Adams, 7,900. I probably should get to a little bit of that for sure as well. The one question I have is Michael Mayer, and at 2,800, he was a very, very highly touted tight end coming out of college, and just put him in the bucket of guys I've brought up on this show. Just if you're going to game stack this one for whatever reason, he makes sense to have some exposure to, but I find this game to be the least appealing out of all of the 5 p.m. out of all of the 4:25 p.m. Window of games. Yeah.
Brock Newsome, right? Yeah. I mean, he was, Sean Payton said a lot about Greg Dulcich too, and now he's number 2 on the depth chart at tight end. So,
and they traded Albert to your Philadelphia team.
To the Eagles. Yeah. It's Adam Troutman at the top. Hey, you guys are awesome. Appreciate you. Love you guys. What a show this is. We'll be back tomorrow on the strategy show, and it all culminates on Sunday with the 4-hour deeper dive in Live Before Lock. Woo! Hey man, great first show. Good job. That was awesome.
Thanks, man. 2 hours. I feel it's it a lot. Now. I feel it.
I've done 3 hours of shows already, so I got to take a piss. Follow Eric at Eric Lindquist, me at Lafayette_D. Hit us up on Twitter. We'll talk shop, get into some football action if you're not there yet, or on the X, I should say. Shout out to Mike for producing this one. We'll catch you guys back here for the next one. Good luck this week, guys. I'm sure we'll see you before that. Peace.